All right, Doug, do you want to call the meeting to order?
Yes, let's call this meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee to order. Nate, could you please call the roll?
Thank you. Margaret Land.
Here.
Antonia Marinucci.
Here.
Marika Clark.
Here.
And Doug Wall.
Here.
All right, so our first item on the agenda today is 1733 Fulton Road. This was previously seen at last design review, and they're seeking final approval on the window alterations. So Rob, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Nate. We appreciate it. So we are here to propose changes to 1733 Fulton Road. We need to replace the windows. You can see the site. And, we discussed last week, this is the unit in question. And we are going to be changing the windows in like kind, say Pella Architect Series, aluminum clad exterior, wood interior to match what is already there. That's pretty much it. It's as simple as that.
Yes, looks very straightforward. And I can't see anything that we could object to or need to ask about particularly. I guess the windows that have divided lights, are those the fused on Munsons and they're replacing in kind with the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
And the patterning is the same on the windows as what's there.
Patterning is going to be exactly the same as what's there.
Cool. I don't have any issue with this. I mean, it looks pretty straightforward.
Thank
Yeah,
you for updating this.
Yeah, it's very, this is very straightforward.
Anyone care to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Nate, please call the roll.
All right, so the motion is to approve as presented. I'll call the roll. Margaret Land, sorry.
Yes.
Marika Clark.
Yes.
Antonia Marinucci.
Yes.
And Doug Wall.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion is approved.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob and Pete.
Yeah.
All right, and the next project on our agenda is 1908 West 44th Street. This is also a window repair and replacement, and also a porch repair, it looks like. This project was seen at last design review as well for conceptual approval, and Courtney is returning now for final approval.
There, thank you, or close to final approval. If you can go to the next slide. So thanks to Nate, found a 1964 picture of the house, which I was thrilled with, and I couldn't believe it took the Cleveland Public Library about 15 minutes to find this. I love it. So I basically want to go back to this, with the exception of, I don't know if you can tell from this photo, the brick asphalt siding they had on at one point. But what I love, the windows are still in the same place, the door's still in the same place. The porch clearly has been falling down, so somebody propped it up with another post in the middle. But what I love about this is, as you guys expected, and somebody mentioned last week, it's got the, 1x3 or 1x4 molding around the windows. It's got a light dark combination that I think actually really balances everything out. It's got double hung windows. That's fine. If I can get a slightly smaller upper window in the double hungs, you can see where there used to be stained glass up there. I will try to do that. There is a 20-week wait for windows. So two things need to happen. I need to get final approvals. It's going to be the Marvin, Pella, or the Pella, or one of the architecture series from Pella or Anderson. It just depends on who can actually get me the brown, basically the same brown or antique bronze color that's there now, but the same profile almost exactly that you can see here. The other two things that are different about the existing and from the existing one is, there's 3, not 4 posts on the porch. I'm pretty sure the porch is entirely rotted for my contractors, so we kind of need to just put it back together. And they have a knee wall rather than spindles, which makes a whole lot more sense for, again, for the kind of scale and scope and size of this house, to my way of thinking. So double hung windows, stay lighter trim around them. I want to talk to Tim Barrett before I actually pick the colors, and he's not been reachable for the last month. I'm assuming he's on a wonderful vacation. I imagine it's in Italy, but I have no idea where. So I don't want to actually pick the colors until he comes back. He's got a couple of trim colors on his house that I would actually like to pull into this. And I think that would maybe help it blend into the neighborhood a little bit better. But I suppose if I have to formally ask for approval, I want to go back to this porch post setup. It's also, so two things. It's got the knee wall, 3, not 4, nicely balancing the front door. Windows stay in the same place, stay double hung. The trim will match this, but the trim's not going to go up until the windows actually show up and they're doing that work. I need to just replace the porch. And then if you want to go to the next slide, a friend of mine who's also an architect called that, we're removing shutters that are there now. Again, replacing a knee wall from with the spindles, and then restoring at the tops and bottoms of the columns, for example, there's a little decorative or slightly larger piece, and just basically match those, because those make a whole lot of sense to me, and just to help frame that as well. I'm assuming it's, since we're not going back to 1964 brick asphalt siding, wood, again, the wood, I don't know what the word is for it, clapboard siding, whatever that is, but matching that, as I said, shutters come off, and then repair everything that we can, seal up the corners. There's extensive rot, and the bump out in particular has extensive rot, so we need to get on that pretty fast. But any thoughts or questions about the general style idea of matching what that layout there before?
What year was that other image from? Do you know? That left side image?
Oh, the one on the left?
Yeah.
That's current day picture. That's what my
Oh,
house.
that's current day. It just looks.
Oh, it's all that and then some. That's a pretty view of it. But yeah, no, and there is no wood underneath the vinyl siding on most of the bump out. There are places where it's been gnawed out by rodents, and then places where it clearly is just rotted out. So we've got some repairs to do quickly, and then windows to order. I am still concerned. The attic needs some ventilation, and I would rather, I'll keep the window as per guidance in the last meeting, but it would be much better if there's somewhere to get a vent in there to get some airflow. The whole house is like, it's a 3,000 square foot place, and it's 100 feet long. So even some vents popping out the roof, which are there now, are not enough to, I think, keep that going. But any questions? Let me start with that. And does this group have any problems with me kind of going back and using this 1964 photo as a guide?
I just would like to start with a question about clarifying the window, because you said you were either going to do the Pella Architect series, yes?
That
Or-
or the Marvin version of the same thing, Marvin Ultimate. You get to
Okay,
the
but
same, all aluminum clad wood windows. Not clear which I can get yet. I threw this picture I have left over from last week, but I'm still getting pricing from these folks in delivery times. Now, none of it's going to show up until December, which is kind of a moot point. But all aluminum clad, thin. Sorry, Doug, go ahead.
I'd agree that both of those are equivalent products.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about let's compare those two photos of the attic window. It kind of looks like the proportion, somebody changed out the attic window in addition to adding the shutters, and it looks like it's a bigger, wider opening than was originally there, or at least in 1964. It looks closer to square, and this one looks, much wider than it is tall.
I would love to go smaller. It may take me 1 year to get there because I need to patch for now to get it winterized. I would love for it to be smaller.
Yes, I think that's, the window should be closer to square to, it just looks more appropriate anyway with the proportions of the house and so forth.
I like that much better. Yep.
You haven't shown us any details of the porch and porch roof construction. I know you said you're going to try to, match the original, but just talk about this for a second. What is the support around the porch? Are there just piers where the original columns were? Are there continuous like brick foundation around it, or what is that condition?
The porch itself is slab concrete. The vertical posts are, I'm assuming 6x6s that are clad in rotting aluminum. The same, yeah, they've got aluminum wrapping, and the nails or whatever's holding it in are all rusting, so it's popping off. And then the bottoms of them are all rotted. The roof, it's basically that black tar pre-roof, I think, that's on it now. I can't quite tell how many layers, but it's more than 3 on it, and it is clearly leaking at the edges, and you can see that inside as well.
You're going to tear the whole thing off and rebuild it, or you think some of the framing is adequate to keep and just replace as needed kind of thing?
Replace as needed.
Okay.
Yep. But the locations would stay the same, and it looks like the porch is the same size and shape as it was before. And it also looks like in the 60s, it kind of looks like concrete there too. It didn't look, but yeah, let's head back.
Hard to tell from that picture.
Yeah, but the
Probably
porch
you're right.
steps, it kind of looks the same, and it's rotted, or it's kind of tilting enough that it's not in horrible shape. But it didn't look, it really doesn't seem to look much different than today.
Yeah. Let's talk about the height of the knee wall. Nothing in here says, how high it is, but that's clearly not a 36-inch high
Not at all.
railing. It's more like 32 inches, I would say.
Yep. And it's only, it's the problem there is actually that it's only, it's not even 12 inches off the ground. So this is the lowest porch of the series in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not worried about, in that case, height or anything like that. And more the problem is keeping the snow off the porch.
Sure.
Because it's so
Are you committed to the knee wall, or would you consider using spindles? My hunch is that the spindles would probably have been original to the house and not the knee wall.
well,
I was going to say the same thing, Alex.
I think the spindles are out of, well, so 2 things. I like the knee wall much better. It fits because the windows on the front porch, so the downstairs tenant, they're really low. So otherwise somebody's looking straight in, at literally, it's only like 18 inches off the ground. They're exceedingly low. I think the spindles seem out of proportion. And I found even like the old Christmas Story house, some of the pictures I found had knee walls in it before. I like the proportion that the knee wall gives, particularly with the light trim, dark siding. It just like, this to me, like looks like a nicely done simple house on the right. And the kind of Western style spindles on the left, they to me, they seem out of proportion. Which is big
Well,
old.
those spindles are clearly wrong, for
Yeah.
a lot of choices in spindle design, and I would, agree with where they're coming from. Probably originally it was not a knee wall. However, the only evidence we have is the knee wall photograph. So, you can't, you can argue for you to think about it, but
Yeah.
Well, we know that in the 40s and 50s, and our neighborhood in particular, the knee wall was added to a great number of properties. And with regard to the window height, even Canez today, when they build a new house, their front windows that open onto the front porch do go almost all the way down to the porch within a few inches, and they all spindle railings. So that's not, that factor doesn't carry a lot of weight, I don't think.
I think it could be really simple because, as you mentioned, it has those nice, very simple Tuscan columns. And a lot of times we see just the chunky square spindles. So there could still be a very simple design without being a full wall.
Yeah, and Courtney, if you were to go with that approach, those come prefab, you won't have to worry about the detailing. The base and the cap will come with it. And so it makes the carpenter's life a lot easier.
I gotta say, I really like the knee wall better. I will also add that there are 2 dogs upstairs, 1 dog downstairs, all about 60 pounds. So the knee wall is just a really more comfortable way to live with all the fur and this, because this house is also right on the sidewalk. It's maybe 8 feet off the sidewalk. I like it better. I really like this knee wall in this 1964 photo way better.
Then I think we should see what's being proposed, because is it just going to be then like a flat piece of painted wood, or could you do something that
Flats or shingles would be my first choice. Whatever kind of text, something textured.
I think it should be the same lap siding that's on the house if you're gonna do the knee wall.
Yeah,
It's
not a
not
solid
gonna-
piece of wood. Yeah, the lap siding I think would be nice.
And then
Yeah,
you can't tell-
definitely not a solid piece of wood.
Right. You can't tell from this photograph, it's just that it just lacks detail, is obviously that there is gonna be water getting on the porch, it needs to drain somewhere, so you'll need to hold I guess it does look like there's a block there that, in the middle that's holding up the railing and creating a space above the
Yeah.
concrete for drainage.
Yeah, just enough to get the water out. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah,
So
I
in
mean,
this case, you got a cap piece, but you also need, it looks like there's a 1x4 apron board under the cap at the top to make it a little more beefy. So
exactly.
this is all kind of conjecture we're reading into this photograph. But
Yeah. And I think all of those, I want to copy those. I think it absolutely it just makes this particular house make sense.
mhm.
I apologize, I lost my internet connection when you were answering my question about the, is it Anderson or Marvin that's the alternate to the Pella?
Either, I'm still waiting on time and availability for both.
Okay.
Marvin, I've used the Marvin before and I like it.
Mhm. Those are very nice. And then if it's Anderson, we usually ask for it to be specified the E series.
E-series, right, that's what I've got quotes.
Okay,
from them, but
perfect.
they're the
Thank
wrong
you.
Sizes, yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, yeah, they all with the same kind of 1 1/4 inch sort of band around them, trying to get that dark brown, antique bronze, whatever their version of it is. I think Pella's got their brown. So again, so I guess I'm asking for approval for, like one of those windows. I can let you know. I want to talk to Tim Barrett before I pick colors, but I like the light up on the top triangle and then the darker down below, although siding I'm not going to touch for a while other than repairs. Trim to match this, and I want to match the knee wall again with the clapboard siding or whatever whatever that word is. Although the brick does add a nice texture, I gotta say. Let's see. And again, matching the trim pieces both on the posts, on the ceiling of the porch, and around the windows. And then I haven't quite figured out how people keep their windows from snowing shut up top, but everybody else seems to have the same situation where the porch roof comes right up to the windowsills. So I guess I'll learn. Other questions or comments?
No, I can't think of anything else. I'm wondering, if we should, are you gonna try to rebuild the porch yet this fall?
I've got somebody available to do it. So since I can't replace the windows, I would like to get that done. And I definitely want to get the wood on the front side of the house and the bump out repaired before this winter.
It would be nice if you could have your architect friend just sketch up a detail of that knee wall so that, there's something a little more specific there about what you're going to do that shows the height and how it's going to be built and what the trim pieces are and so forth.
Sure. Yep, matching this as much as possible. Nate, you want to pull out the markup from, let's see. Yeah, I think he was able to find the posts, yeah, we'll get back to work on that. Sure, he's happy to do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Courtney, I have 2 questions. Are you reconstructing the roof of the porch or just?
It's gonna be figure out how bad it is. I can't tell what's rotted,
Okay.
and you tell me why, and why are you asking? Or what's the question?
Your comment about the roof meeting at the windowsill is interesting to me, and it makes me wonder like what era. I'm question if the roof would have been original to the 19th century house, because of that detail. And if you are going to modify the roof, maybe it's just an opportunity to do a slightly lower pitch, so it gives you just a little bit of space beneath that window to be able to flash it properly.
My guess is that there are 4 or 5 layers of roofing slabbed on that thing. So if you take them down, you can match the snow on the picture on the right. But I do think that roof is more or less in the original position because of the bump out and the way the bump out's constructed on it. So, but I think there are so many layers on that roof that when you strip those down and chip away the rotted wood on the edges, that you're still going to be right at it. And I was looking at Tim, as I said, Tim Barrett's house is kind of diagonally across the street. So I was looking at his again yesterday, and he's got the same thing. He's got 1.25 inches between like one piece of frame and down. So I don't think there's much to work with there, but
so the intention is to just keep the roof structure as much as you can intact. So
exactly, or replicate it with the detail on the right.
Perfect. Okay. The other comment I have, I agree with my colleagues on the knee wall likely not being to the original, but if that's your preference, as long as we get a little detail, or a little more detail on that, then I think that would be fine. It is restoring it to a point in history that we have, as Doug said. My other comment is just noting on the sketch you have item 6, like right where that 6 is drawn. And I can't recall if this, when I pick up my kids later, I'll walk past and check. If that gable flares out, it's when you go to do the siding repair or replacement eventually, that's really a really nice defining architectural element that's very subtle that we want to have kept. We've had other people remove that when they do the siding, but if there's a flare there, I just want to emphasize that we would love to see that maintained and restored.
Tell me what you mean by that. And maybe go back to the first picture, Nate, which might show that corner of the house a little better. Well, yeah, stop right there. Which flare were you talking about?
I can't see it as well actually in the historic photo, but in the photo that your architect sketched over, like right where that's where he wrote the number 6, you can see like how it appears.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that there's like a flare at the bottom of the gable.
Right.
And that's a really, really nice detail that's just, we see get lost a lot when people do siding. So I would love to just note that, please maintain it. Please keep it.
If we can keep that piece of wood, we certainly will. On the right hand side, go back up. Stop there.
Yeah.
Either one. So on the right hand side, you see a little dark spot at the end of the right hand version of that. That's where the wood's rotted, and you could put a hedgehog through that gap. On the left side, so I've got to just figure out basically how to get the lead paint off without polluting everybody and everything, to get that part restored. I can't tell what shape that wood is in. It doesn't, the first quick glance at it was that it was not awful. So we could keep the left side, but we still have to figure out how to repair the right side of it. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out. If we can, there's no reason to change it. If we have to replace the whole thing, that might get a little, I will do what I can to try to keep it. I have no reason to want to remove it.
Okay, cool.
And I'm trying to keep the wood that's up there now, if I can, depending on how rotted or intact it is. And whether all the wood's coming off the front or whether we can keep it and just restore it as is. It looks like it's got like, if I can get it before this winter, it's got a little time left where at least there's been paint on it. But now the paint's peeling off pretty extensively. So let me see what I can do. And then also just double check what the rodent damage is, because they just ate through some of the siding on the bump out. So
one other quick architectural, like kind of building system concern, because I had told you last time, like if the house is in that state of disrepair, you might have a lot of issues with that shell. And you mentioned that the attic needs ventilation. Is the attic occupiable?
No.
So is the insulation on the underside it's at the ceiling level of the plate below.
You assume there's insulation. There's insulation in the, what seems to be the floor of the attic. And it's actually doesn't look as bad as the rest of the outside of the house. But I can't quite tell yet. And I can't quite tell how the edges are sealed. So where the rodents are getting in. No, but it's mostly just wood frame is up there. There's certainly no insulation in the ceiling raft, in the roof rafters. And you see some fiberglass sitting around. And the furnace is there for the upstairs unit. But I need to dig a little deeper, but no, it's not habitable, and I don't ever want it to be habitable.
Okay, well, my recommendation as a restoration architect, my first recommendation is going to be if and when you get to that point, especially if you have a furnace up there, is to insulate at the roof, like as in insulate the roof, and have it be, preferably, my first choice is always an unvented roof. So if you can budget in, like if you were my client, that would be a spray foam recommendation, so that you don't need the ventilation and you're maximizing the efficiency of that furnace. If you have a furnace up there, that thing has got to be the least efficient furnace without insulation.
It's at least
in our 8 months of heating months, you're not getting a lot of use out of that furnace. So and that would also, of course, alleviate your need for a vent up there.
Close it up. Yeah. We've got a little more research to do on that one. And I've used closed cell before in a home in Raleigh, which, so it's kind of like free heating in there. We've got a little more research. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And I frankly, I would love to do the roof. Now, the other part is I need to just double check what's going on with the roof. It doesn't appear to be in bad shape, but the wood rot at the bottom of the roof and the gutters, or lack thereof, are issues. So a little more research on that one. We've started opening up the walls inside, and the studs in general, the frame of the house seem to be okay. But there clearly some water damage and rodent damage in places. So thank you for sharing that. And that would be one of the easier projects to do. So we'll see, but thank you.
I have just a couple of quick questions. One, I'm curious, Margaret, your thoughts on the shutters getting taken off. I'm sort of wondering if there could have been shutters.
I think it's more appropriate without.
Okay.
Especially if they're not functional.
Right. Is that right, Courtney? They're not actually functional.
Not functional.
Okay. And then just you had a note in one of the slides around the iron fence. Are you planning to replace the fence there in the front yard?
I like it. I'm not going to do anything at first. Before I get to that fence, I think I'm going to run out of money. But if I do go to a fence, I love this. But first things first, I got to get the house intact. So that'll be back for next year. But I think this one's cute. Although it doesn't actually, the proportions of it seem a little weird with that house with the knee wall. But we'll get back to that later.
Okay, but then you have a plan for some like landscaping. I was just looking on Google Street View. It looks like the front yard is pretty in need of some work. So I just was curious.
It's all been, last weekend, it all got chopped down. So both the backyard and the front yard are now look like this, actually.
Okay.
Somebody decided to do a little rock stack somewhere that we'll be removing, but again for next year. So no, right now it actually kind of looks like the house on the right. It's just, it's clear.
Yeah, I just was also kind of wondering.
And that tree's gone.
Right, I was gonna say, I would encourage you to consider planting a tree in the median here. I know the neighborhood does have a program, or the city has a program. I don't exactly know how easy it is, but to reforest the city, and specifically Ohio City Incorporated, I believe, Alex and Nia, back me up on this, has a program where they can help with like planting new trees, just because this West 44th has a nice canopy, but this stretch where your house is kind of a gap.
Yep, I'm preserving the two in the backyard. They're kind of back left side. You can still see them there. Keeping those intact. There's a dead elm in the back that needs to come down. I can't say I mean, I would love to have a tree there, but I'm not real excited about doing it. It's got all of the sewer, gas, and water lines right there, and there is no others. I mean, it's a like 8 by 15 space right in front of the house. There's no room there, and all it can do is take out.
I meant on the median. That's
The tree line.
So there's a picture on Google Earth of the city there, I don't know, repairing sewer water lines, whatever else, but it's got major infrastructure running through it. Right there. So I can't imagine a big old, I mean, I'd love it, but I can't imagine that's gonna do anything good for sewer water lines right there.
There is a whole line of, I mean, Nate, if you want to pull up the Google, there is like a whole line of trees on
Oh,
either
yeah.
side, so.
Courtney, I think you wouldn't have a problem there, and I would recommend like a London plane or something for that spot. And
Okay,
the city would provide that. That's no expense to you.
That's what I mean.
great.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have to pay for the tree ideally.
But
That
you do have to initiate getting the.
okay.
Yes, and you can find out where the utility lines actually are if you, I haven't had to do it for a while, but I think it's called 1-800-MISS-DIG.
Right.
And they'll look up where the connections are on the utility maps. And so
They're right there. Yeah.
I would imagine though that if you're going through a city program, they would also do that background work.
Right.
Not necessarily, but they should.
Not necessarily they should be.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yep.
All right, would anyone care to make a motion?
Well, are we asking to see more detail on the porch?
I think we need to. I need to, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, we could make a motion to approve the windows if that helps with the ordering time.
Yes,
That
we
would.
need to.
Yeah.
Okay,
The windows and the window trim style to match which lets the contractors prepare and get
Okay.
the front of the house going. So the window trim to match the 1964 photo. And then I would also like approval to restore the porch, restore the porch, again, as close to that 1964 photo as reasonable, with the exception of the fact that you guys want to see, before the knee wall goes in, you want to see more detail on that.
yes.
Well, I'd like to see details on the column. I'd like to.
Me
fill out
too.
the-
I'd like to see the whole porch.
All right, can you go
Like
back to,
a
64
section
can you go back to the
cut.
64 photo for a second?
I'm also not convinced that the 1964 photo is our best, is something we should emulate.
Well, Alex, I've asked the Cleveland, the archives for more information. Haven't heard a peep back from them for a couple of weeks. I'm
Well,
not
we
sure.
can- I mean, we can look around and knowing the age of the house, we can, through conjecture, make some pretty accurate assumptions about what would have been there.
I guess the other thing I would encourage this committee to think about is this is a rotted front structure, and I've got carpenters available to get back to this with spindles or knee wall sort of doesn't matter in the grand scheme of getting.
If you come back next week or the next 2 weeks with all those details, we'd consider it, and probably, if they're right, approve it. But we do need to see those details.
Yeah, I think they need to be, an architectural drawing.
All right, understood.
But
Well,
we
then
could,
we'll-
Carl, you're on mute. Were you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're gonna need those drawings for when you submit for your building permit anyway, because it's gonna have to be reviewed by building and housing staff. So if you're handing in those final architectural drawings with everything, this way it's done, it goes through, I can approve it on my end, and then they have all that information, because they're gonna have all those questions anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
So would you like us to just take the window thing as a separate issue and let you go on that one?
Windows and trim.
Okay. Would someone care to make a motion about that?
yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the aluminum clad wood window, either Pella Architect Anderson E Series or the Marvin, with the dark color as presented, and then the proposed window trim to match the 1964 photo.
How do you feel about adding the thing about the attic window being a little bit narrower to look like the 64 photo.
And yes, if a smaller attic window is available, that as well.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Nate, please call the roll.
Thank you. So the motion is to approve the windows and trim and recommend a smaller attic window. So Doug Wall,
Aye.
Margaret Land,
I,
Marika Clark,
Yes.
Antonio Marinucci,
Yes.
and Alex Frondorf.
Yes.
Okay, the motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you need a separate motion to table the front porch to return later, or architectural details and
That
such?
would be the correct way to do it, is to.
Yeah.
So, yes, do we want to, someone want to make a motion to table the rest of it?
Yes, Courtney, do you agree to tabling the porch, the question of the porch?
Yes.
Okay, then I move to table the porch.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, Nate, call the roll, please.
Doug Wall,
Aye.
Margaret Land,
Yes,
Marika Clark,
Yes.
Antonio Marinucci,
Yes.
and Alex Frondorf.
Yes.
Okay, great. And that's our final item on the agenda today. So thank you.
Thank you. Happy Labor Day.
Thank you.
All right, you too. Have a great weekend.
Nate, real quick, do you have any update on the Woodbine property?